Hello again, friends. Circle of Hope pastors are here. Well, at least we should say what remains of them during the middle of July. Rod and I'm Joshua, Rachel, Johnny, and Ben are on vacation, so we're continuing with our weekly little video cast here, which is really an experiment in dialogue because certain questions come up a lot in the church or in our work. And we think other people are thinking about it, so here's a little bit to stimulate your conversation, and hopefully it's useful for you. Today we're exploring, we're responding to this question that's come up a bunch in some different ways that someone asked about whether worship and prayer should make you feel better, whether you should feel better after doing it or doing it. So I would just say, I've had this conversation lately in about 3 or 4 different situations. One of them was talking to a good friend of mine who's a yoga teacher, and about why people seem to be drawn to yoga. And that was kind of like one of the answers. Part of the answer was like, because it can actually make you feel better. You feel less stressed afterwards or something. And another one was about talking to some friends of mine who don't pray or meditate or worship consciously regularly, about just how to even wind your brain down to sleep, or how do you settle it down. And I was talking about prayer and meditation and stuff, and that was interesting to them. So here we are. Rod, what do you think? Do you feel better when you worship?
Oh yeah, I also feel better after I go on a long bike ride or eat protein rather than chips. So I mean, just like basic self-care makes me feel better. We were talking about this at our meeting on Sunday, and just acknowledging the quite a few people we'd heard say that they never pray, and so we realized we needed to have some good time in our meeting to pray, because that's when they did it. That's how they that was the extent of their prayer, and so they did feel quite a deficit, because they're always running around and not getting time to be with God or even just collect their thoughts. So they felt better than when they came to the meeting, but they didn't feel good enough because they didn't have a regular practice of it. But yeah, I feel better when I pray. Yesterday I was doing my version of running around too. I got up so early. I got involved in a project and actually forgot my normal time when I spend with God in the morning. And it did affect me all day. About in the afternoon I had to like have another time. I needed more time, and if I miss my time to concentrate, focus on God and pray, I don't feel as well. So I definitely feel better when I pray.
Well, when you are talking there, that's my experience too. Maybe starting off that regular discipline right away, it doesn't necessarily feel good. And I've tried different prayer disciplines over the years. Even lately, I try out different things, and different seasons have different spaces for me. For instance, when it's warmer out, not super hot, praying while I'm sitting in my garden is great. In the winter, that doesn't work so well. But the beginning of it, I think, might feel more like something I'm trying to do, and it's kind of like going to the gym or something. It's something that, like, maybe there's some kind of moral accomplishment, but it doesn't necessarily help center me as much as once you get into the rhythm. Then when you don't do it, you realize how important it has become, and how much intimacy with God matters, and how much that even affects the way you see the world or you see yourself. And that's incredibly healing for me.
Yeah, I think some people might be asking this question because they don't feel better when they pray or after worship. And I can really respect that, because I think the implication always is, when you have worship leaders or prayer guides, give you this pep talk like, if you do this, you'll feel better. and it works. It does something, and so someone tries it a little bit, and that doesn't happen, and they get kind of soured on it. And I've often told people, like when they come to worship in particular, that one of the first impacts that worship makes is to point out your resistance. How you haven't formed a relationship with God, and you have this natural resistance to that change, that newness, that relationship, and worship just kind of can be an irritant. It can just point it out. And if you're really committed to not like giving in to God, like there's no surrender. On Sunday we were talking about Jonah, how he had to get swallowed by a fish so that he would actually end up surrendering to God. And that was his prayer in the belly of the whale, and I think a lot of us never get, somehow either we didn't get swallowed or we don't ever pray the prayer, and we're just kind of getting digested by the whale. And so worship can just be an irritant. And if you're listening to me and you heard that, I said, well, that might be an indicator of what needs to happen so you can actually get over that, so you could actually feel better. It made me feel better on Sunday when I just sang that one song that Michael Barbari gave us about putting a pebble in my shoe and naming it Dare, because I want to follow Jesus, to remind me to keep on the track. I mean, I've been singing that all week, because it makes me feel better. It reminds me who I am and where I'm going.
That's such rich imagery. I love it. Yeah, I've had experiences with worship where I'm being told what to do so much, or there's this sort of I feel expectations, and other people do too. And my resistance sometimes, it makes it really hard to just open myself up to God. I think generally on Sunday nights, I don't feel that because it's a non-coercive environment and people aren't kind of bossing you around telling you how to worship right or something all the time, like, the 80s aerobic instructor videos. But it's way more about how to actually connect with God. And there's environments where it's harder. And I hope that we can make space where people can come where they're at and get met. But like you're saying, how to like open yourself up to being touched by God, how to be open to being directed or comforted in that moment, to be confronted with love like that does take some work. And the regularity of it for me is really important. And it also, like you were telling that little story, it shapes my week because I carry those things with me and I want to. And that's part of the discipline of it too. That's just lovely, is things that happen, on Sunday can, I carry them with me even today. I'm still affected by the sweetness.
Yeah, for sure. I think while you're talking, I was remembering that it's about love too. It's the same kind of thing that happens in your relationships, like with your wife or your lover, and you gotten kind of stuck and you're not saying what you need to say, and the relationship feels a little stagnant or even tense, and then you have that, maybe an argument, or you have some kind of dialogue that loosens up the atmosphere, and suddenly you're reconnected and you feel better. It's that same kind of movement, only we're talking and relating to God, talking to God and relating to God, and that's even more intimate. So it's no surprise that we have maybe even more argument or more tension or more struggle actually making that connection. But when we do, then it's like amplified. It feels even better. Like you have this more like almost rather than just a connection with a good feeling of love with somebody, you have this kind of, I'm connected to an eternal sense of love. That really feels good to me. So I long for that. I mean, I'm eager to get into a situation where I can get that.
Well put. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And for more resources that we're talking about, circleofhope.net would have how to get to all of the Sunday meetings that our congregations are having. And there's also a link to some different prayer resources, such as Circle of Hope Daily Prayer, you may want to check out if you haven't yet. But thanks for tuning in. Until next time, peace.